Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:07 on this Friday in your nation's capital as we end this week with glorious weather and beautiful cherry blossoms, launching you into what should be a fantastic weekend as we say goodbye to March and say hello to April flowers. Coming up at 8:05, Mark Fisher, a Maryland delegate, in an ongoing spat he's got with Governor Wes Moore. And then at 8:35, Mike Litterist, he is the spokesperson for the National Park Service. He'll give you the latest on those blossoms and the Kite Festival tomorrow. I'm Larry O'Connor, and that is Patrice Onwuka.
Happy Friday, everybody.
Yes, Patrice Pink File, by the way, on social media.
Thank you, Larry.
She is often dressed resplendent in her cherry blossom pink.
Except today.
Except today. What's going on with the blues?
I know. It's a blue week for me.
That's all right. It's a bit of blue month for me. I will be ready to see March of 2025 in the rearview mirror. That said, last night, I want you to know, and we try to set the table for you. Listen, we like to reflect on what happened yesterday in the afternoon and in the evening, what's going on in our world, but we also like to project forward in terms of what you should expect in the news cycle today. And I tell you, the interview that Elon Musk and members of the DOGE team, the Department of Government Efficiency, had with Bret Baier of Special Report on Fox News last night, a 30-minute interview that I implore you to watch in its entirety or listen to in its entirety. Absolutely. We, of course, because of the constraints of our time and schedule, cannot give you the entire interview, but we've got some highlights for you. What happened yesterday during this program, Special Report with Brit Hume, is still the gold standard right now for political news and analysis on the American airwaves. He really is the best at what he does. And this interview will be talked about all day long. Sound bites and clips of this interview will be played on every TV show and radio show and podcast that you know and love.
I shake my head yes for radio shows and podcasts and no for cable news because and on our screen here in the studio, I'm looking at MSNBC and CNN. They have not mentioned DOGE once.
Well, I'm sure they haven't, because what we finally saw was a PR offensive from Musk and from the team to actually lay out clearly what these guys are doing. So it's not the caricature that has been painted by Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and AOC. These are real men and women who have set aside their very successful lives in the private sector for the sake of our nation. We'll start with Elon Musk as he's describing some of the waste, fraud, and abuse he has found.
For you, what's the most astonishing thing you've found out in this process?
The sheer amount of waste and fraud in the government. It is astonishing. It's mind-blowing. We routinely encounter wastes of $1 billion or more, casually. For example, like the simple survey that was literally 10-question survey that you could do with SurveyMonkey, cost you about $10,000, the government was being charged almost $1 billion for that.
For just the survey?
$1 billion for a simple online survey, do you like the national park? And then there appeared to be no feedback loop for what would be done with that survey. So the survey would just go into nothing.
Yeah, and listen, I know that there are a lot of listeners who are members of the federal government, and they don't like the way Elon Musk is going about what he's doing, and they don't like the image of him with a chainsaw. These are your jobs. This is your livelihood. I get that. But at the same time, you can hold that belief. You can hold that opinion. Yet at the same time, when you look in the mirror, you know the truth of what he just said. You know that happens in your department where you work. You know it. And it needs to be fixed. Musk went on to talk about some of the loans that he saw at the Small Business SBA.
For example, there were over $300 million of Small Business Administration loans that has been given out to people under the age of 11.
Well, actually, to add to it, it's $300 million under the age of 11 and over $300 million to over the age of 120.
Definitely.
Small business loans.
Correct.
Yes. The oldest American is 114. So it's safe to say if their age is 115 or above, they're fake. Or they should be in the Guinness Book of World Records. And we should not be giving out loans to babies. So the youngest recipient of a Small Business Administration loan is a 9-month-old, which is a very, very precocious baby we're talking about here. So obviously it was just fraudulent. And they do terrible things. They actually will see that a kid's been born. They will steal that kid's social security number and then take out a loan and leave that kid with a bad credit rating. There was literally a baby. The terrible things are being done is what we're saying.
If we had reporters in this town who really cared about good government and speaking truth to power and being the fourth estate and speaking on behalf of the American people like they claim, they would have a microphone in the face of every single elected Democrat in this town asking them to defend $300 million of SBA loans to children under the age of 11. But they're not doing that because they don't care. They're not what they say they are.
I know we have a ton more clips, but just to say, a couple of weeks ago, everyone in the news said, oh, we want to see receipts. We want to see receipts. DOGE, Elon Musk keeps claiming that there's all this waste, fraud, and abuse. Let's see the evidence. Well, here's the evidence right now, and they don't care.
The other thing you're hearing from them and from Democrats this week is that DOGE is and the Trump administration is trying to kill Social Security. Chuck Schumer was just saying that they're trying to strangle Social Security, and one of the pieces of evidence is they're trying to cut back the costs of their call center because they're spending billions and billions of dollars on this Social Security helpline. It's like, well, that doesn't seem reasonable. That doesn't seem right. Well, listen to Cut 7. What's really going on with that Social Security helpline?
I'll say the two improvements that we're trying to make to Social Security are helping people that legitimately get benefits, protect them from fraud that they experience every day on a routine basis, and also make the experience better. And I'll give you one example is at Social Security, one of the first things we learned is that they get phone calls every day of people trying to change direct deposit information. So when you want to change your bank account, you can call Social Security. We learned 40% of the phone calls that they get are from fraudsters.
40%.
That's right. Almost half.
Yes, and they steal people's Social Security is what happens. Is they call in, they say they claim to be a retiree, then they convince the Social Security person on the phone to change where the money's flowing. It actually goes to some fraudster. This is happening all day, every day, and then somebody doesn't receive their Social Security. It's because of all the fraud loopholes in the Social Security system.
And I want to reiterate, those in this town who oppose what Musk and DOGE are doing here by exposing this fraud, those who have sat silently allowing this to happen and fester over the decades, they're responsible for this. They're trying to protect the fraud.
Yes.
They're trying to protect this corruption. We've got more from this astounding segment on Bret Baier's show last night. Again, we're just scratching the surface. I implore you, seek this out on social media. It's 30 minutes long, and it is so important.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Democrats and their partners in crime, the members of the legacy media, they will tell you that Musk and Trump are trying to kill Social Security because they're trying to make it more efficient and get rid of some of the waste and fraud and abuse. You just heard that 40% of the phone calls that the Social Security call center has to deal with has to do with people who are trying to fraudulently change their direct deposit information so they can steal people's Social Security checks. If you're trying to stop that from happening, sounds to me like you're actually trying to help people and save Social Security. Here's a little bit more of that. Cut 8. This is Steve Davis. He's part of the DOGE team. And he reveals more that they found at Social Security in particular.
The amount of issues that were the Social Security system are enormous. As an example, there are over 15 million people that are over the age of 120 that are marked as alive in the Social Security system.
And that's an accurate figure.
Yes. Correct.
15 million.
Correct. This has been something that's been identified as a problem, again, pre-existing problems since 2008 at least, from an IG report. So there were some great people working at the Social Security Administration that found this, 2008, and nothing was done. And so 15 to 20 million Social Security numbers that were clearly fraudulent were floating around that can be used only for bad intentions. There'd be no way to use those for good intentions. And so one of the things the DOGE team is doing is carefully and very methodically looking at those and making sure that any fraudulent ones are eliminated.
Now, anybody who works in the private sector, works in the commercial world, you know that when new ownership comes in, new management, or even if you're industrious, you go through your department, you go through your company, you figure out where you're wasting money, you figure out where people maybe are fraudulently abusing the systems that you have in place. You tighten those systems up, and the net result is you save money. You've actually got money in the long run because you've cut out all of the waste and even fraud and crime that's going on. So Elon Musk follows up now. As you hear about these things that they're trying to fix in Social Security, what's the net result?
No, in fact, what we're doing will help their benefits. Legitimate people, as a result of the work of DOGE, will receive more Social Security, not less. I want to emphasize that. As a result of the work of DOGE, legitimate recipients of Social Security will receive more money, not less money.
All right.
I want to emphasize that point and let the record show that I said this, and it will be proven out to be true. Let's check back on this in the future.
By the way, that's a guy who's got a pretty good track record of being accurate and correct and successful in his ventures. So, Patrice, there's a little bit more of this, but let's pause there for a second to sort of reflect. I'm so glad. I don't know why they waited so long, but I think they've been too busy actually doing work. But they need PR. This is important. You've got to be in the public eye, and you've got to be speaking out. And I thought this came across incredibly sincere, incredibly genuine, and incredibly effective.
I think it absolutely did as well. The takeaways here: stop stealing our Medicaid. That's what DOGE is saying to the fraudsters out there that have for decades been taking people's Medicaid and their Social Security. And Democrats will have absolutely no answer to this because they want to protect a system where, you know, people can rip off the government or benefit in some way, and any change to the system is a threat to them. So, I mean, I think more of this PR is important. Listen, you don't need to put out reports. I get people in Washington love to cite reports in their articles, but you do more of this and you go on the podcast. That really gets the message out there because, frankly, it's not, like I said, I've been watching CNN and MSNBC with my eyes about to fall out, but they have not mentioned this interview, and they're not going to mention it either.
The good news is you're one of the few people who are watching MSNBC
here
and
in our
CNN.
studio.
So this message does get out. All right, get this. I love this. You know, these DOGE people. One of them happens to be the founder of Airbnb.
Wow.
Joe Gebbia, who has now set aside his life to help this effort. Take a listen to what he found in cut 10 here.
I bumped into Anthony and Elon probably back in February, and they told me something about a mine that was dealt with retirement, and they said they needed somebody to help out to fix retirement in the government. I love the challenge, so I jumped on board, and it turns out there is actually a mine in Pennsylvania that houses every paper document for the retirement process in the government. Now, picture this. This giant cave has 22,000 filing cabinets, stacked 10 high to house 400 million pieces of paper. It's a process that started in the 1950s and largely hasn't changed in the last 70 years. And so as we dug into it, we found retirement cases that had so much paper, they had to fit it on a shipping pallet. So the process takes many months, and we're going to make it just many days.
Wow.
We've got more of this. Stay with us. We've run out of time in this segment. We've got business to take care of. But just for a moment, imagine being a tech wizard who founded Airbnb, and then you walk into this scene that goes back to the Eisenhower era in how they handle federal retirements, and he's fixing it. And he's not getting rich off of doing that.
Exactly.
He's doing this for the service of his nation. We owe a debt of gratitude to DOGE, not the cartoon characters that have been created by the Democrats and the media. It's 7:22.
Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It is 7:37. It's O'Connor and Company on a very busy and impactful Friday morning. Thank you for letting us into your routine as we close out this week and launch you into the weekend. 8:05 brings us Mark Fisher, a Maryland delegate who's sparring quite effectively with Governor Wes Moore, letting the world know that the emperor has no clothes. And then at 8:35, Mike Litterist, National Park Service, who'll give us the latest on peak blossom time starting, right now. It's Larry O'Connor. And it's always peak blossom time when you're around, Patrice.
That is so sweet. Thank you very much, Larry. Happy Friday, by the way.
Happy Friday to you. And we've been spending some time here on this extraordinary segment from Bret Baier's special report yesterday, where he, at the old Executive Office building, I love that they've converted Joe Biden's phony White House TV set that he made in the old Executive Office building into kind of a podcast television studio.
Very nice.
Where people can come in and have a really nice setting to interview members of the administration without venturing into the West Wing. Baier and Fox News took advantage of that. DOGE set up Elon Musk and a group of engineers who have sacrificed their time and their careers and put them on hold to help in the effort to make the government more efficient and to weed out fraud, abuse, criminal behavior. The last thing we just played for you was the founder of Airbnb, who is now revamping and modernizing our retirement systems for federal employees so that the workforce can have responsive government systems in their HR department, and also we can save a ton of money where you don't have to go down into a mine shaft with thousands of file cabinets sitting around. It's just amazing.
I hope people don't start setting Airbnb locations on fire.
If
this gets out.
Here we go. That's a great, God forbid. All right, let's go to Anthony Armstrong here. Again, one of the engineers working here. These are real people, not the cartoon villains that are twirling their mustaches there, going after trying to smother a puppy or something. Here's Anthony Armstrong, cut 12.
There's a lot of money sloshing around. There's a lot of money sloshing out the door. And if you look at the federal government and the way the workforce works, it's really a one-way ratchet over decades. So
it's only going up.
It's only going up. You never take it away. So that leaves you with duplicative functions, it leaves you with overstaffing, and it leaves you with functions in the wrong places. So a couple of examples. Duplicative functions. Brad mentioned 27 CIOs. If you kept going with Brad, he would talk about the communications office. I think you've got 40 distinct communications offices in HHS, right? Yeah.
40?
Yeah, and that's not unusual, by the way. Multiple offices like that.
It's also not making anyone healthy.
This is not about the employees there. There's many hardworking, well-meaning people who took these jobs. These jobs were out there. They applied for them. They took them. They're doing what's there. It's just that they're duplicating the effort of 40 offices. So you've got that. You've got overstaffing. A good example of overstaffing would be the IRS has got 1,400 people who are dedicated to provisioning laptops and cell phones. So if you join the IRS, you get a laptop and a cell phone, you're provisioned. So if each of those IRS officers or employees provisioned 2 employees per day, you could provision the entire IRS in a little more than a month. So 12 times a year, you can re-provision.
Why would you have 1,400 people whose only job it is to give out a laptop and a phone?
Right. The whole IRS could be handled once a month. So that doesn't make any sense.
Absolutely extraordinary. Let's hop to cut 14 here. This is Tyler Hassan, who talks about who he is. Again, blasting through this villainous stereotype that the left, that Jasmine Crockett, AOC, and Chuck Schumer have painted. Cut 14.
Do you guys all see this as a patriotic duty? I mean, is that really what this is about?
It's essential.
Right. I do, 100%. I was running 5 businesses in Houston, and I left that. I left great people to do this, and my wonderful wife said, go for it. And here I am. But I feel like this is me giving back to the country.
If we don't do this, we're sunk. The ship, unless this exercise is successful, the ship of America will sink.
All right.
That's why we're doing it.
Quickly, cut 15, another engineer.
By some estimates, government IT costs about $100 billion, and it's funding systems that are over 50 years old, in the case of something like Social Security or the IRS. So really critical systems are old. They cost a lot of money to maintain, and they can be the efforts to improve them are often very delayed.
All right, and let's now cut to cut 11. This is Joe Gebbia. Once again, this is the founder of Airbnb. I want you to hear this. As you hear the lies that are being told about Musk and about this team, who have not been able to speak for themselves until now, listen to this.
What you're seeing is taking the best of Silicon Valley in the business world and bringing it into the government. We're bringing the best practices and the best methodologies, and people are inspired. right? Especially on the retirement process, which I can speak to. They've been trying to modernize and get off of paper since early 2000s, very unsuccessfully. Every attempt has gone over budget and been canceled because it hasn't been successful. And so, I showed up and I feel like I'm here because it's an interesting problem. We can use design to solve it and good engineering and really create a better experience for everybody.
We're talking about elementary financial controls that are necessary for any company to function. So, like, if the federal government, if a commercial company operated the way the federal government does, then it would be immediately go bankrupt. It would be delisted. The officers would be arrested. The changes we're putting in place will enable the federal government to pass an audit. It will enable taxpayers to know where the money is going and know that their hard-earned tax dollars are being spent well.
This is a pivot point in American history, and we're lucky enough to be on the verge of it. And there are forces in this town who are trying to stop it from happening. We're going to continue. This is too important. There's more to work with.
Yes.
We're a bit up against it right here. But stay with us. You're going to hear more, and I know Patrice and I want to comment on it too.
WMAL's Vince Colonnese, weekdays at noon on 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
So I do want to get into some more of these cuts, but I would love to sort of dwell on this for a moment, Patrice, because it can't be emphasized enough that this is vital and important work and stuff that I've been following politics for decades now, even before I got into the business of being one of those talking heads that gets to talk about politics. And I've heard it every couple of years. Every time the budget comes up, I've heard politicians on both sides of the political aisle promise me that they were going to make the government more efficient. They were going to get rid of waste. They were going to get rid of fraud. They acknowledged that it exists, but they never did anything. You can look at the video clips of Bush saying it, of Clinton saying it, of Obama saying it, of Al Gore saying it, of Joe Biden saying it. Patrice, they've never done it. And now we're doing it.
Yes.
And boy, is the Army getting called into position, and battle stations are there to protect this corrupt and inefficient status quo. And thank God they came forward last night on this Bret Baier interview. It was brilliant.
It was brilliant. And what it did, it gave a picture and colored in the lines of exactly what we say when we say waste, fraud, and abuse. When you talk about the 120-year-olds or the babies whose identities are being stolen to take out small business loans. I mean, this is what people need to understand so that when Democrats clap back with, well, no, they're cutting your Medicaid or they're cutting your Social Security. No, they're preserving it and making sure that no one else is stealing it.
Yep.
And by the way, if anything, the CNNs and the MSNBCs will probably focus on the fact that this was a stage of all white men. These are the mediocre white boys that Jasmine Crockett talked about recently when she said that that's the reason why we need DEI. No, these are people who have given up. It doesn't matter what their color is or what their gender is. It matters that they care about this country and are fighting for it.
Cut 17 here, you hear more about what was going on in the Treasury Department, a department that handles a whole lot of money and doles out quite a bit. Take a listen.
You need to have the payment codes, you need to have the payment explanation, and you need to have a person you can contact to understand why that payment was made. None of those things were mandatory until just recently, just a few weeks ago. In fact, maybe last week?
Yeah, we're serving 580 plus agencies. And up until very recently, effectively they could say make the payment and Treasury just sent it out as fast as possible. No verification. And so what we're doing is what any household would do. But imagine you're a household, you have a bank account, everyone has an ATM card connected to that account, everyone has a checkbook connected to that account. It's not just your children, it's not just your parents, it's your in-laws, it's your extended family, and they all can go to the account and disperse funds. No questions asked, no justification, no verification.
No business is allowed to operate this way. You heard Musk say if a corporation did this, they'd be delisted and the executives would be arrested for fraud. And yet we've allowed it in our government.
No nonprofit would be allowed to stay in business either.
And tons of these initiatives and these systems were identified over 10, 15, 20 years ago as things that needed to be fixed. Congress allocated money for it, and that all got wasted, and the fix never got implemented. Now it's finally happening, and if that causes some pain or some discomfort or some speed bumps along the way, so be it. That's how you make things better. It's 7:52.